The HOA Karen laughed as if it was all a joke. She crossed her arms, smirked, and looked down at the little girl standing in front of her. "You don't tell me what to do in this neighborhood," she said loudly, making sure everyone heard. The girl's hands were shaking. Her voice was barely holding together. "Please, your dog isn't safe. Someone is going to get hurt." People nearby chuckled. Some shook their heads. Others pulled out their phones, already enjoying the embarrassment. The Karen tightened the leash and mocked her. "Maybe you should worry about your own problems, sweetheart." Then the dog stopped walking. Its body went stiff. Its ears flattened. Its growl was low, controlled, terrifying. The leash stretched tight. The girl whispered one last time, "I warned you." And in the next few seconds, something happened that no HOA rule, no authority, and no laughter could stop, leaving the entire neighborhood frozen in silence. Before we go any further, let me ask you something. Which city are you watching this video from right now? Drop your city's name in the comments below. I read every single one, and I love seeing how far these stories travel. And if you're someone who enjoys real-life inspired stories filled with emotion, suspense, and shocking twists, then take just 1 second to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications. These stories aren't just entertainment. They carry lessons we often learn too late. Now, let me tell you why this story matters. We all know someone like her. The neighbor who hides behind rules. The person who uses authority not to protect, but to control. The one who thinks a title makes them untouchable. And we've all seen people like the little girl in this story too. Quiet, ignored, overlooked. The kind of person whose voice gets drowned out because of age, size, or status. This story isn't just about an HOA Karen or a dangerous dog. It's about what happens when pride becomes louder than truth. When warnings are treated as disrespect. When laughter replaces listening. It's about a moment where everyone thought they were safe until they weren't. What you're about to hear is a story of mockery turning into regret, of authority collapsing in seconds, and of one small voice that tried to prevent a disaster. Every second of this story builds toward a moment that changed an entire neighborhood forever. So sit back, listen carefully, because once this story starts, there's no pausing it. Let's go back to the beginning, to a quiet street, a powerful HOA president, and a warning that should never have been ignored. Maplewood Lane looked like the kind of neighborhood real estate agents love to brag about. Freshly cut, grass lined both sides of the street like green carpets. White mailboxes stood perfectly straight, each one identical, each one approved by the HOA. Cars were parked neatly in driveways, never on the street overnight. Even the air felt quiet, controlled. And at the center of that control stood Linda Hawthorne. Linda had lived on Maplewood Lane for 12 years, and for the last 4, she had been the HOA president. Not because she was elected by overwhelming support, but because no one else wanted the responsibility. And Linda took that reluctance as permission to rule. She believed rules were what separated good neighborhoods from bad ones. And by rules, she meant rules. She woke up every morning at 6 a.m., poured herself black coffee, and walked the street with a clipboard, measuring grass height, checking trash bins, noting which house lights were still on past midnight. She sent warning letters like clockwork, polite on the surface, threatening underneath. People avoided her, not openly, but subtly. Conversations stopped when she approached. Children were pulled inside when she walked by. Neighbors waved nervously, hoping she wouldn't stop. And Linda noticed. She just didn't care. Because walking beside her every morning and every evening was Titan, her dog. Titan was a German shepherd, huge and intimidating. His fur was thick and dark, his eyes sharp and alert. When he walked, his paws hit the pavement with a heavy rhythm that made people instinctively move aside. Linda liked that. She liked the way Titan made her feel powerful, protected, untouchable. "Don't worry," she often said with a smug smile. "He's trained. He can sense bad people." But the truth was, no one really knew how well Titan was trained. They only knew he growled. A lot. He growled at delivery drivers, at joggers, at children riding bikes. And Linda always brushed it off. "He's just doing his job." No one argued. Because Linda didn't argue, she documented. A complaint from her could mean fines, or legal letters, or endless HOA meetings. So people stayed quiet. All except one. At the far end of Maplewood Lane stood the smallest house, beige paint peeling slightly near the windows, garden slightly unkempt. It wasn't bad, just different. That's where Emily Carter lived. Emily was 10 years old, thin, with big observant eyes and hair usually tied back in a messy ponytail. She had moved there only 6 months earlier with her mother after her father died. Her father had been a canine trainer. Before he passed, he taught Emily things most children never learned. How dogs communicate, how tension travels through a leash, how aggression doesn't always look loud. Sometimes it looks quiet and controlled. Emily noticed Titan from the very first week. The stiff tail, the fixed stare, the subtle growl that came from deep in his chest. This wasn't excitement. This was restraint. Every afternoon, Emily sat on her front steps with her backpack beside her, waiting for her mom to come home from work. And every afternoon, Linda walked past with Titan. At first, Emily just watched. Then one day, she noticed something else. The leash. It wasn't new. It wasn't thick. And near the handle, the fibers looked worn, stretched thin, like they'd been pulled too hard too many times. That afternoon, Titan lunged suddenly at a passing cyclist. The leash snapped tight. Linda stumbled but laughed it off. "Easy boy," she said. But Emily's stomach dropped. She stood up. Her heart started racing, not from fear, but from certainty. As Linda approached, Emily spoke. "Ma'am, I think your dog is stressed." Linda stopped walking. She looked down at Emily like she'd just stepped on gum. "Excuse me?" Emily swallowed hard. "I mean, he's showing warning signs. That leash might—" Linda burst out laughing, a sharp, mocking laugh that echoed down the quiet street. "Oh my God," she said loudly. "Now kids are giving dog advice?" A few neighbors glanced out their windows. Emily felt heat rush to her face, but forced herself to continue. "My dad trained police dogs," she said softly. "He taught me." Linda cut her off. "This is a private community," she snapped. "And I am the HOA president. You don't tell me how to manage my dog." Titan growled. Not loud. Low. Controlled. Emily took a step back. "I'm just trying to help," she whispered. "Someone could get hurt." Linda leaned closer, eyes cold. "Then mind your business." She yanked the leash and walked away, heels clicking sharply against the pavement. Emily stood frozen. From behind curtains and fences, neighbors watched, saying nothing. No one defended her. No one asked questions, because challenging Linda meant trouble. Emily sat back down on her steps, hands shaking. She wasn't embarrassed. She was scared, because what she saw in Titan that day wasn't a maybe. It was a when. And Maplewood Lane, with all its perfect lawns and silent rules, had no idea how close it was to learning that lesson the hard way. By the next morning, Maplewood Lane was already whispering. Not loudly, not openly, but in the way quiet neighborhoods do, through side glances, lowered voices, and text messages sent behind closed doors. "Did you hear about the Carter girl?" She tried to tell Linda how to handle her dog. Kids exaggerate these days. Emily didn't hear the words directly. She felt them. At the bus stop, conversations paused when she arrived. A group of kids stared at her, then quickly looked away. One boy snickered and whispered something to his friend. Emily kept her eyes on the ground, pretending not to notice, but her chest felt tight. She wasn't embarrassed. She was worried. The image of Titan's rigid posture replayed in her mind again and again. Her father's voice echoed in her memory, calm and firm. "Aggression isn't chaos, Em. It's control breaking down." That afternoon, Emily walked home slower than usual. She didn't want to sit on the front steps today. She didn't want to see Linda. But Linda was impossible to avoid. At exactly 5:30 p.m., Linda marched down Maplewood Lane like she always did, posture straight, chin high, Titan at her side. Only this time, she was smiling. The kind of smile that meant trouble. She stopped in front of Mrs. Keller's house, where two neighbors were chatting. "You won't believe what happened yesterday," Linda said loudly, making sure her voice carried. A child tried to lecture me about my dog. She laughed. The neighbors laughed too, awkwardly. Apparently, Linda continued, she thinks she's some kind of expert. Emily stood frozen in her driveway. Linda saw her, and instead of walking away, she waved. Oh, look, Linda said sweetly. There she is. Emily's stomach dropped. Come here, sweetheart, Linda called. Emily didn't move. Linda walked toward her instead, Titan's heavy paws echoing with each step. The dog's eyes locked onto Emily, unblinking. Linda leaned down slightly, still smiling. Why don't you tell everyone what you told me yesterday, she said. Go on. Emily's throat tightened. I said, I think Titan is stressed, she managed. And the leash, Linda straightened up and laughed loudly. You hear that, she called out. She thinks my dog is dangerous. People were watching now. Windows, porches, driveways. Emily felt small. My dad trained Kay. 9 dogs, she said again, voice trembling but determined. I've seen this before. Linda's smile vanished. Oh, honey, she said coldly. Your dad isn't here anymore. The words landed like a slap. Emily's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't cry. That doesn't mean I'm wrong, she whispered. Linda stepped back, offended. This is harassment, she snapped, and I won't tolerate it. She pulled out her phone. I think we need to discuss this at the HOA meeting tonight. Emily's heart sank. The HOA meeting room that evening was packed, not because people cared, but because people loved drama. Emily sat in the back with her mother, who worked 2 jobs and looked exhausted. She had no idea what was coming. Linda stood at the front, confident as ever. Let's address a concern, Linda began. A resident's child has been spreading fear about my dog. Murmurs filled the room. Emily felt her mother tense beside her. Linda continued, this kind of behavior creates unnecessary panic in our community. Emily stood up. I wasn't spreading fear, she said. I was warning you. The room went silent. Linda raised an eyebrow. Oh, she said. About what, exactly? Emily took a deep breath. Titan's leash is worn. He's showing signs of redirected aggression, especially around uniforms and moving objects. Someone laughed. Another person shook their head. Linda clasped her hands dramatically. Well, she said, should we ban dogs now, too? Maybe ban children while we're at it? Laughter exploded. Emily's mother stood up angrily. That's enough. Linda raised her hand. Ma'am, please control your child. That was it. Emily's voice cut through the room, clear, sharp, and certain. Tomorrow evening, when the mail truck comes, he'll snap. The laughter died instantly. People stared. Linda narrowed her eyes. And how exactly do you know that? She asked. Emily hesitated. Then she said the truth. Because dogs like Titan fixate. And every day at 6:10 p.m. the mail truck stops. He tenses. He pulls. He's waiting. The room felt colder. Linda scoffed. This is ridiculous, she said. Meeting adjourned. She slammed her gavel. People stood, whispering again. Some avoided Emily's eyes. Others shook their heads. But one thing had changed. Doubt. Just a crack. Emily sat back down, heart pounding. She hadn't wanted to be right. She wanted to be heard. Outside, as people filed out, Titan stood near the door. Still, silent, watching. And in that moment, Emily knew something terrible was coming, not because she feared it, but because no one had stopped it. The morning after the HOA meeting didn't feel normal. Maplewood Lane looked the same. Trimmed lawns, quiet sidewalks, sprinklers ticking like metronomes, but something invisible hung in the air. A tension no one wanted to name. Emily felt at the moment she stepped outside. Neighbors who usually rushed off to work lingered longer than usual. Curtains moved. Phones were held just a little higher. Everyone remembered what she had said. Tomorrow evening, when the mail truck comes. Some people laughed it off in private. Others dismissed it as coincidence. But no one forgot. At school, Emily couldn't focus. Numbers blurred on the page. Her teacher's voice faded in and out as the clock above the whiteboard ticked forward. Tick, tick, tick. She wasn't counting minutes. She was counting down. Her father's lessons replayed in her mind, moments from years ago, standing on a dusty training field, watching dogs move with controlled power. Watch the eyes, he used to say. A dog tells you what it's going to do long before it does it. Emily had watched Titan's eyes. They were locked, focused, waiting. After school, Emily walked home slowly. She passed the same houses she always did, but today, people watched her differently. Mrs. Keller waved nervously from her porch. A man walking his golden retriever crossed the street when he saw Emily coming, then seemed embarrassed when he realized why. Whispers followed her. Do you think she's serious? Kids imagine things. But what if? When Emily reached her house, her mother was already home early, something that almost never happened. We need to talk, her mother said quietly. They sat at the kitchen table. The house smelled like reheated soup and laundry detergent. The HOA called my office, her mother said. They said you caused a disturbance. Emily stared at her hands. I wasn't trying to, she said. I know, her mother interrupted gently. But people don't like being told they're wrong. Emily swallowed. Mom, she said, I'm scared. Her mother looked up sharply. Of a dog? Emily shook her head. I'm scared no one will do anything. Her mother reached across the table and squeezed her hand. We'll stay inside tonight, she said. We'll lock the doors. Emily didn't respond, because she knew that wouldn't change what was coming. At 5:45 p.m., Maplewood Lane began to fill. Not officially, not announced, but people stepped outside by coincidence. Some watered their lawns. Some stood at their mailboxes. Others leaned against cars, pretending to scroll through their phones. Everyone knew what time the mail truck arrived, and everyone knew who walked Titan at that exact hour. Linda stepped out of her house at 5:55. She looked flawless. Hair neat, sunglasses on, leash in hand. She was angry. Not outwardly, but in the tight way her jaw clenched, in the way she yanked the leash harder than usual. Titan felt it. He walked stiffly at her side, ears twitching, muscles coiled. Linda noticed the people watching. She noticed the whispers, and she loved it. Let them look, she thought. Let them see how wrong that girl was. She's not going to embarrass me, Linda muttered. Titan growled softly. Quiet, Linda snapped. They walked past Emily's house. Emily stood on the sidewalk. She hadn't planned to, but something pulled her there. Linda slowed. Oh, look, she said loudly. The prophet herself. A few people chuckled nervously. Emily didn't respond. She was watching Titan. His breathing had changed. Shorter. Faster. His eyes weren't on her. They were down the street. Waiting. At 6:05 p.m., a distant engine sound echoed. Emily's heart skipped. Titan froze. The leash tightened. Linda laughed. Relax, she said loudly. It's just the mail truck. Emily spoke, not shouting, not panicking. Please, she said. You need to secure him. Now. Linda turned on her. This is harassment, she said sharply. One more word and I'll call the police. Titan's paws dug into the pavement. The growl deepened. At 6:08 p.m., the white mail truck turned the corner. Children were still outside. A little boy dropped his basketball. A toddler waddled toward the curb. Emily's chest burned. Please, she shouted. Get the kids inside. People hesitated. Confusion rippled. Linda's face flushed red. That's enough, she screamed. Titan is under control. She tightened the leash. That's when Emily saw it. The frayed fibers near the handle. Stretched thin. Barely holding. Her father's voice screamed in her head. Leash failure isn't an accident. It's neglect. The mail truck slowed. Titan lunged. The leash snapped. Not slowly. Not dramatically. It gave out in a sharp, violent crack. Time fractured. Screams erupted. Linda lost her balance and fell backward. Titan surged forward, powerful, fast, unstoppable. And in that moment, every laugh, every dismissal, every ignored warning collapsed into pure terror. Emily ran. Not away. Toward him. Because she knew something no one else did. This wasn't about fear anymore. It was about seconds, and whether anyone was brave enough to act. The sound of the leash snapping was sharp and final, like a gunshot. For half a second, no one moved. Then everything exploded. Titan surged forward, a blur of muscle and fury, his paws slamming against the pavement as he broke free. His growl ripped through the air, low, feral, uncontrollable. Children screamed. A mother dropped her phone and ran toward her toddler. A man shouted warnings no one could hear. Someone yelled, "Call 911." Linda scrambled on the ground, panic overtaking her authority. "Titan! Titan, stop!" She screamed, her voice cracking. But Titan didn't even glance back. His eyes were locked on movement. The bouncing basketball rolling across the street, the sudden run of children, the slowing mail truck. This was no longer a walk. This was instinct unleashed. Emily's heart slammed against her ribs. Time felt wrong, stretched, slowed, distorted. She saw everything at once. The little boy frozen in the road. The toddler stumbling toward the curb. The mailman stepping out of his truck, confused and unaware. And Titan, closing the distance fast. Emily didn't think. She remembered. Her father's voice came back to her, not as memory, but as command. If control is gone, don't scream. Don't chase. You give a command, the dog knows. Emily ran. Her sneakers slapped against the pavement as she put herself between Titan and the children. People screamed for her to stop. Get back. Someone grab her. She's crazy. Emily skidded to a halt, planted her feet, and did something no one expected. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She commanded, "Down." Her voice cut through the chaos, sharp, clear, absolute. Titan hesitated, just for a fraction of a second, enough for the world to hold its breath. Emily didn't stop. "Stay." The word landed hard. Titan's muscles trembled. His claws scraped against the asphalt. He dropped, not gently, not obediently, but forcefully, like something inside him had been slammed shut. Silence crashed over Maplewood Lane. No screams, no laughter, no barking, just the sound of Titan's heavy breathing. Emily stood frozen, arms at her sides, tears streaming down her face. The little boy was pulled into his mother's arms. The toddler was lifted away from the curb. The mailman backed into his truck, shaking. Linda stared from the ground, mouth open. She couldn't understand what she was seeing. Her dog, controlled by a child. Emily swallowed hard. Her voice shook, but she held it together. "Stay," she repeated. Titan's ears flicked. He stayed. Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had finally called 911. Police arrived first, then animal control, then paramedics, though no one was hurt. No one, because Emily had acted. An officer approached cautiously. "Who gave the command?" he asked. No one answered. Emily raised her hand. The officer stared at her. "How did you know what to say?" he asked gently. Emily's voice broke. "My dad trained police dogs," she whispered. "He taught me before he died." The officer nodded slowly. Animal control examined Titan, carefully restraining him. "This dog is trained," one of them said, quietly. "But he's overstressed. That leash never should have been used." They turned to Linda. "Ma'am," the officer said, his tone firm, "your negligence nearly caused a fatal incident." Linda began to cry. Not quietly, not gracefully. She sobbed, shaking, her authority stripped away completely. "I didn't know," she repeated. "I didn't know." Emily watched her, and for the first time, she didn't feel angry. She felt tired, because knowing had never been the problem. Listening was. The crowd stood in stunned silence as Titan was loaded into the animal control vehicle. Not destroyed, not punished, evaluated, retrained, given another chance. Unlike the trust Linda had lost, the officer turned back to the crowd. "Everyone inside," he said. "This could have ended very differently." People slowly dispersed. Heads down, shaken. Maplewood Lane, the perfect neighborhood, would never feel the same. Emily walked back to her house. Her mother ran to her and pulled her into a tight hug, shaking. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered through tears. Emily didn't respond. She just stared down the street, at the spot where laughter had turned into fear, where rules had failed, and where one small voice had finally been heard. The sirens faded, but the silence stayed. Maplewood Lane didn't return to normal after that evening. Not the next day, Not the next week, not ever. The lawns were still trimmed, the mailboxes still straight, but something essential had cracked. People avoided each other's eyes, because everyone knew how close they had come. Emily woke up the next morning feeling like she'd run a marathon. Her body ached, her throat was sore, and her head throbbed from replaying the same moment again and again. Titan's charge, the snap of a leash, the breathless silence after her command. At school, teachers spoke softly to her. The principal called her into the office, not to scold her, but to ask if she was okay. "You did something very brave," he said. Emily didn't feel brave. She felt hollow. When she came home, a news van was parked near the entrance of the neighborhood. A reporter stood with a cameraman, whispering excitedly, "Local child prevents dog attack," the headline would later read. Emily's mother shielded her from interviews. "She's just a kid," she said firmly. But the story spread anyway, and with it came questions. Animal Control released their report 2 days later. Titan had been professionally trained years ago, but he had never been properly recertified. The leash Linda used was cheap, worn, and unsafe for a dog of his size. His stress signals had been documented in prior complaints, ignored every time. Negligence. Plain and simple. The HOA board was forced to meet again. This time, Linda didn't sit at the front. She sat alone. Small. Quiet. The board president pro tem cleared his throat. "Due to recent events," he said, "we are calling for an emergency vote." No one laughed. No one interrupted. Linda tried to speak. "I just wanted to keep the neighborhood safe," she said, voice shaking. A man stood up. "My son was almost hurt," he said, "because you didn't listen." A woman followed. "We all warned you," she said. "Even a child warned you." Linda broke down. "I didn't think that was the problem," someone said. The vote was unanimous. Linda was removed as HOA president effective immediately. Her power, the thing she'd used to silence others, vanished in seconds. After the meeting, people gathered in small groups, whispering. No one praised Emily. Not yet, because admiration takes time. Guilt is instant. Emily sat on her front steps that evening, watching the sun dip low. She felt eyes on her again, but this time they weren't mocking. They were ashamed. Mrs. Keller crossed the street hesitantly. "I should have said something," she admitted quietly. "I'm sorry." Others followed, one by one. Apologies piled up. Emily nodded, but the weight didn't lift. She didn't want apologies. She wanted understanding. Later that week, Linda packed her house. Emily watched from her window as boxes were loaded into a moving truck. Linda didn't look up. Titan was transferred to a rehabilitation program. Reports said he responded well. Structure, routine, proper equipment. He wasn't evil. He was mishandled, just like the truth had been. On Friday afternoon, the mail truck came again. Children were kept inside. Parents watched closely. Nothing happened, but no one laughed this time. That evening, Emily's mother found her sitting quietly on her bed. "Do you know what you did?" she asked gently. Emily shook her head. "You reminded adults what responsibility looks like," her mother said. "And how dangerous it is when pride gets in the way." Emily stared at the floor. "I wish they had listened earlier," she whispered. Her mother hugged her tightly. "So do I." Because sometimes the aftermath isn't relief. It's realizing how easily everything could have been lost, and how close everyone came to learning the lesson the hardest way possible. Months passed, but Maplewood Lane never forgot. Not because the incident was talked about constantly, it wasn't, but because everything afterward felt different. The neighborhood slowed down. People still followed rules, but they no longer worshipped them. HOA meetings became quieter, shorter, and strangely more human. New policies were written, not just about lawns and trash bins, but about safety, accountability, and listening. Especially listening. Emily noticed it first in small ways. Parents asked their children questions, real ones, and waited for answers. Neighbors checked on each other instead of reporting each other. When someone raised a concern, it was discussed instead of dismissed. The street learned something it never should have forgotten. Authority doesn't equal wisdom. And silence doesn't equal peace. Emily grew taller that year. Not just physically, but in how she carried herself. She still didn't talk much. She didn't crave attention. But she wasn't afraid to speak when something mattered. Her father's old training whistle hung on a hook near her bed. She touched it sometimes, not with sadness, but with gratitude. He had given her a gift, not control, understanding. One afternoon, Emily walked home from school and noticed a new family moving into Linda's old house. A little girl about her age stood on the porch, holding a stuffed animal tightly. The girl looked scared. Emily walked over. "Hi," she said softly. "I'm Emily." The girl smiled. And just like that, a new beginning replaced an old wound. Titan's name came up occasionally. People asked about him. Animal Control later shared an update. He had completed rehabilitation and was placed with a retired trainer who understood him. He had structure, space, safety. He was calmer. Because dogs don't fail people. People fail dogs. The same way adults sometimes fail children. On the one-year anniversary of the incident, Maplewood Lane held a small safety meeting. Nothing dramatic. No speeches. Just a reminder. An officer spoke briefly. "If you see something unsafe," he said, "say something. And if someone speaks up, listen. No matter their age." Emily stood near the back. No one laughed. No one looked away. They looked at her, not as a child, but as someone who had changed them. That evening, Emily sat on her front steps again. Same place, same street, different world. Her mother joined her, handing her a glass of lemonade. "You okay?" she asked. Emily nodded. "I think so." They sat in comfortable silence. A breeze rustled the trees. The mail truck passed by without incident. And for the first time, Emily smiled, because the warning she gave hadn't just stopped a tragedy. It had started a change. If this story moved you, even a little, hit the like button so more people can hear it. If you believe children deserve to be listened to, share this video with someone who needs that reminder. And if you want more emotional, suspenseful, real-life inspired stories that leave an impact, subscribe to the channel right now. Don't forget to comment your city below, backhand index pointing down, because voices matter, and sometimes the smallest ones save the day.